Welcome everyone to the nursing class of pharmacology. I am Dr. Ramya, second year PG in pharmacology. Today our topics are about vaccines, antidotes and antivenom. What are vaccines? Vaccines are suspensions of dead microorganisms or attenuated but live microorganisms which stimulate immune system of the recipient, resulting in the development of either cellular mediated immunity or humoral immunity from protective antibodies. Vaccines are employed prophylactically and are of no value if administered during incubation period or during active stage of a disease. Live attenuated vaccines are superior to the inactivated vaccines. What are the types of vaccines? We have 5 types of vaccines. First, live or attenuated vaccines. These vaccines are prepared from live pathogens which are made weak to make them non-virulent. Examples such as BCG, oral polio vaccine, influenza vaccine, etc. Inactivated vaccines or killed vaccines. They are prepared by killing the pathogens by heat, alcohol, or formaldehyde. Example, typhoid vaccine, cholera vaccine, rabies vaccine, etc. Coming to the third type of vaccine, toxoid vaccines. The bacteria like tetanus bacilli, diphtheria bacilli, they produce toxins. The vaccines produced by these microorganisms are detoxicated and are used for preparation of vaccines. Examples are tetanus toxoid vaccine, diphtheria toxoid. The fourth type of vaccines are combined vaccines. That is, more than one vaccine are included. Example, DPT like diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus, MMR, measles, mumps, rubella. More than one kind of immunizing agent is included in this vaccine. It is also called as mixed vaccine. Fifth type of vaccine is cellular fraction vaccines. These are prepared from extracted cellular fractions. Example, pneumococcal vaccine is prepared from polysaccharide which is present in the capsule of microorganisms. Similarly, meningococcal vaccine is prepared from the polysaccharide antigen of cell wall of microorganisms. These vaccines are safe. In this table, we have bacterial vaccines, bacterial toxoids, and rickettsial vaccine. We'll learn about them in detail. First bacterial vaccine is BCG. BCG is given at birth. It is a live attenuated vaccine. It is given intradermally in the deltoid muscle. Its accuracy rate, efficacy rate is about 75 to 80% against miliary and meningeal tuberculosis. Small adverse reactions like fever and regional adenitis may occur. Pertussis, it is acellular inactivated bacterial antigen which is given intramuscularly. Its efficacy rate is about 80 to 90% when it is combined with other vaccines like diphtheria and tetanus. Typhoid vaccine, it is orally present and parenterally also given intramuscularly or subcutaneously. Oral vaccine, it is a live attenuated vaccine which is to be taken orally on the alternate days as a single capsule 1 hour before eating for a total of 4 doses. Capsules should be refrigerated. It provides protection for about 5 years. Its efficacy rate is very less, that is 50 to 70%, and it may cause mild GI disturbances and fever. Whereas typhoid vaccine, which is given intramuscular and subcutaneously, that can have efficacy rate about 70 to 75%. Cholera is a whole cell killed LTOR strain vaccine. It is given orally. 2 doses, 2 weeks apart gives 50% protection in 3 years. Coming to bacterial toxoids, we have diphtheria, tetanus, Haemophilus influenza type B, that is Hib vaccine, meningococcal A, C, Y, W135, these are the strains, and PPSV, this is new polysaccharide pneumococci polysaccharide virus 23. All the bacterial toxoids are given intramuscularly. They may cause local reactions and all of them have efficacy rate more than 90%. We'll learn about bacterial toxoids in detail in the further slides. Coming to rickettsial vaccine, we have typhus vaccine, which is a killed organism, which is given subcutaneously and its efficacy rate is very high. Coming to viral vaccines. Poliomyelitis, we have Sabin vaccine and Salk vaccine. Sabin vaccine, oral polio vaccine, it is given orally. It provides systemic immunity as well as local resistance to reinfection by inducing the mucosal secretion of IgA antibodies. This leads to stoppage of fecal excretion and elimination of a carrier state. Whereas Salk, this vaccine induces only limited resistances to growth of the virus in the intestine and thus does not affect the carrier state. Excretion of virus occurs in the fecus. This has to be given in 3 doses. 3 doses of oral polio vaccine does not provide immunity. Hence, the recommendation is the first dose of OPV is given at birth along with BCG. We'll learn about the immunization schedule, at which age which vaccine is given in the further slides. First dose of OPV is given at birth along with BCG, followed by 3 more doses at the weeks 6th week, 10th week and 14th week respectively. A booster dose is given at the age of 12 months to 15 months, that is after 1 year till 15 months you can give. Then coming to mass vaccination with OPV at 5 years to all children. This is called pulse polio immunization. Pulse polio immunization is a campaign which is established by the government to eliminate polio by vaccinating all children who are less than 5 years against polio. Coming to rotavirus. Rotavirus, this virus infects the intestines of all the children virtually by the age of 3 years. A pentavalent human bovine reassortant rotavirus vaccine is now available. This oral vaccine is administered 3 monthly doses from the age 6 to 12 weeks to the age of 32 weeks. This vaccine may cause mild diarrhea, which can be maintained, which can be treated. Coming to human papilloma virus, HPV, this virus causes carcinoma of the uterine cervix and genital warts in women. A vaccine now available effectively protects against 4 types of HPV, in which 16 and 32 are one among the 4 types of HPV strains. It is administered in girls between the ages 9 and 26 years in 3 doses. The second and third dose should be given at 2 months and 6 months after the first dose. This vaccine is very expensive. Coming to hepatitis B vaccine. This vaccine contains inactivated hepatitis B virus surface antigen, that is HBsAg. It is prepared using recombinant DNA technology. The adequate immunity against the infection develops after 6 months and lasts for about 5 to 7 years. Immunization of infants provides long-lasting immunity. Rabies vaccine. Rabies occurs after the bite of an infected animal such as dog. Rabies virus can be found in the animal saliva for up to 7 days before the appearance of signs of illness. The usual incubation period for the occurring of the signs of illness is 4 to 6 weeks. In an unvaccinated patient, The mortality rate of rabies is 100%. The effect of vaccination decreases with the delay of the vaccination of 2 weeks. The rabies vaccines are available as nerve tissue vaccines and tissue culture vaccines. In nerve tissue vaccines, it is simple vaccine. Simple, not simple. It is simple vaccine. This is a sterile suspension of sheep brain substance which contains rabies. It is a fixed virus and it is inactivated by the action of phenol. This vaccine is given subcutaneously into the abdominal wall. Protection is around 60 to 70%. Immunity is only for 3 months. It causes serious neurological complications. So now it is not recommended. The vaccine offers protection only in 60 to 70% cases, even if it is started on the day of bite. You might have heard people telling that they have taken injection around the abdomen, around the navel for after a dog is bitten. So this is that that vaccine. Nowadays, this is not used. Coming to tissue culture vaccine. In this, we have purified chick embryo vaccine, PCECV. This vaccine is obtained by growing the virus in primary cultures of fibroblasts. Example, Rabipur. Next, we have human diploid cell inactivated vaccine. This was obtained from human fibroblast cultures, HDCV. We are using this now. Example, Rabivax. The third tissue culture vaccine is purified vero cell vaccine. This is grown in a vero cell line. Examples, Virorab, Virovax, and Vorab. Tissue culture vaccines give a better antibody response than the older vaccines. The immunity lasts longer and free from adverse drug reactions. So now these vaccines are preferred. Coming to in rabies vaccine, we also have to know that prophylactic treatment should be started immediately in all cases with suspected bite. The course may be discontinued if it is proven that the animal which is bitten is still alive and healthy even after 10 days after the bite. Immediate thorough washing of the wound should be done with soap and water alone. This increases the survival rate to 50% where the mortality rate was 100%. Local dressing of the wound with povidone, iodine, ethyl alcohol or spirit is very much helpful. So when a patient comes with dog bite, these are the first things you have to check. Coming to various viral vaccines, varicella, measles, mumps, rubella, poliomyelitis, all these are live attenuated vaccines. They are either given, varicella is given intramuscularly, MMR is given subcutaneously, and poliomyelitis, as we have already discussed, one is oral and the other is subcutaneous. All of them give 90% to 95% efficacy rates. In rabies vaccine, we have already discussed simple vaccine, human diploid vaccine, purified chick embryo vaccine, which is Rabipur. These are either given, simple vaccine is given subcutaneously and the other two are given intramuscularly. Coming to hepatitis A, B, these are killed vaccines. Hepatitis B, which is recombinant DNA, which is prepared from recombinant DNA technology. All of these are given intramuscularly and they have efficacy rates more than 80%. Yellow fever and Japanese bee encephalitis. These two are the other important viral vaccines which you have to remember. They are given subcutaneously and they have high efficacy rates. About rotavirus and HPV, we have already learned. All the adverse drug reactions should be noted so that when you are doing nursing, these will be very helpful, like which vaccine can cause which adverse drug reaction can be noted. Coming to active immunization. Active immunization may be primary or secondary. Primary immunization is commonly carried out in infants and in children to induce the primary immunity, and it consists of administering 2 or more doses of the vaccine or the toxoid at the suitable intervals. Combination of multiple vaccines or toxoids are now available for primary immunization. Secondary immunization is carried out to reinforce the primary immunity by giving a single booster dose or a recall dose of the antigen. Principles of active immunization. Use only a properly stored vaccine. Avoid all vaccines in the first trimester, that is, first 3 months of pregnancy. Avoid live vaccines in a pregnant woman. For this, you need to know which are live vaccines and which are killed vaccines. So you have to learn them. Live or killed vaccines should not affect the safety of breastfeeding. Avoid vaccines in immunocompromised patients. In infants, immunization should not be postponed if the baby has any respiratory infections, diarrhea, or low-grade fever. Immunization should never be postponed. In premature infants, vaccination should be carried out as per schedule. We'll learn about the immunization schedule in the next slide. Coming to the next point, healthcare workers should be immunized against hepatitis B, measles, rubella, influenza, and varicella. If 2 live vaccines are to be given, they should be given on same day or at least 30 days apart. If a vaccine and immunoglobulins are to be administered simultaneously, then each should be given at separate sites. A vaccine should be injected intramuscularly into lateral aspects of thigh in infants. Coming to the immunization schedule. At which age, which vaccines are given? At birth, we'll give BCG vaccine, that is intradermally root at deltoid muscle. Then OPV, 0 dose. We count this as 0 dose because we give it on the day on which the baby is born. So on the day on which baby is born, we give BCG and OPV 0 dose. At 6 weeks, we give DTP first dose, OPV first dose, and hepatitis B first dose, and Hib1. Hib is human influenza virus. Hib1. For 6th week, 10th weeks, and 14th week, all these 4, that is DTP, OPV, hepatitis B, and Hib-V, all these 4 vaccines are same. But at 6th week and 10th week, we give PCV first dose. PCV is pneumococcal virus, then rotavirus. First dose of these 2 vaccines, one at 6th week and the second dose at 10th week. In 9 to 12 months, we have PCV third dose, then rotavirus third dose, Along with it, measles and hepatitis A at 12 months. At 15 months, we give PCV booster dose. B stands for booster. And varicella first dose, that is for chickenpox. 16 to 24 months, we give DTP booster dose 1, OPV fourth dose, MMR measles, mumps and rubella vaccine first dose, and Hib booster dose. At 18th month, we give hepatitis A2. At 2 years, we give typhoid vaccine. At 5 years, we give again DTP booster dose 2. Booster dose, DTP booster dose 1 is given at 16 to 24 months and booster dose 2 is given at 5 years. Here we again give OPV, oral polio vaccine, 5th dose, then MMR, second dose. First dose is given at 16 to 24 months, second dose at 5 years. Then typhoid, second dose. First dose is given at 2 years, second dose is given at 5 years. Then varicella, second dose. First dose is given at 15 months and second dose is given at 5 years. Then TT, that is tetanus toxoid, which is given at 10 years and 16 years. At 10 years, we have learned about HPV vaccine, human papilloid vaccine, which is given only in girls. This vaccine, it can be given at 9 years to 26 years. So this is the immunization schedule which you have to buttify, but you have to remember it is very important. In this, we have total of 7 doses of tetanus at 6 weeks, at 16 to 24 weeks, at 5 years, at 10 years and 16 years. When you count it, you have 7 doses. Coming to passive immunization. Passive immunization involves the administration of antibodies in the form of serum, plasma, or immunoglobulins to a person who is exposed, that is already exposed to the infection, but in those whom the disease is not yet developed. It is better to check the sensitivity of the patient before giving an injection of antiserum, regardless of whether or not he is previously immunized or not. Intradermal test. Dose is 0.01 ml of 1:100 dilution of the serum, which is injected intradermally. But in patients who have a history of allergy, the dose should be furthermore diluted, that is 0.02 ml of 1:1000 dilution. Previously, we have given 1:100 dilution. Here in other patients who have allergy, 1:1000 dilution should be given. This test is considered as positive if a wheal develops within 30 minutes. Coming to scratch test, 1 drop of 1:100 dilution of the test serum in saline is applied on the superficial scratch on the skin. It is considered as positive if erythema and wheal formation is seen. Coming to conjunctival eye test, 1 drop of 1:10 dilution of serum in normal solution is put into one eye and the other eye is also instilled with normal saline, which is considered as control. The patient is considered as positive if he has allergic and shows lacrimation and conjunctivitis within 30 minutes. Coming to the diphtheria antitoxin. Before learning about this, I have to talk about tetanus toxoid. In this, a course of 7 doses according to the immunization schedule. Then booster doses are given every 10 years. Hypersensitivity reactions may occur due to high concentrations of the antibody in people who are given frequent booster doses of tetanus toxoid. Your understanding, I'm talking about tetanus toxoid. Here, we are giving along with the 7 doses. Booster doses are again given every 10th year. During pregnancy, 2 doses of tetanus toxoid, that is TT, are given at 4 weeks interval. For example, if you give first dose at the 16th week, then the second dose should be given at the 20th week. If immunization history is not known, at least 2 doses, one in each second and third trimester, should be given. This prevents from neonatal tetanus. Tdap, which should be preferably given between 27 and 36 weeks to protect the newborn against pertussis through maternal antibodies. It can be given immediately postpartum if it is not given during the pregnancy. Okay, we have learned about passive immunization, then intradermal test, scratch test, conjunctival test. Coming to diphtheria antitoxin. This is a serum preparation from the horse which is actively immunized against Clostridium diphtheriae. This contains the antitoxin globulins. This antitoxin neutralizes diphtheria toxin at the site of the infection and also that those are circulating in the blood. The dosage range of antitoxin is still controversial, but in mild diphtheria confined only to the nasal or laryngeal regions, a dose of 8,000 units intramuscular injection is sufficient. In moderately severe cases, we require 1,000 to 30,000 units. In all severe cases, a portion of the dose is given intramuscularly and the rest is given intravenously 1.5 to 2 hours later. The IM injection, that is the portion which is given intramuscularly, should be given in the lateral aspect of the thigh. The IV dose should never precede the IM dose. That is, if a dose is 100%, if you have 100% of the dose, if IM dose is 70%, the IV dose should be 30%. It cannot be reverse. That is, if IV dose should not be 70% and IM dose as 30%. The dose should not be resorted to individuals with allergic diathesis or family history of allergic disorders. An intramuscular injection of at least 4,000 units should be given immediately to all suspected cases, even before taking the throat swabs in diphtheria antitoxin patients. Coming to tetanus antitoxin. This is a serum preparation from the horse which is actively immunized against the toxin of Clostridium tetani. Diphtheria and tetanus antitoxins both are taken from the horse. Tetanus antitoxin contains the antitoxin globulins. Similarly, the prophylactic dose of anti-tetanus serum is 3,000 to 5,000 units, which is administered subcutaneously or intramuscularly. The immunity is attained within 1 to 3 weeks. A second dose is given only in a patient who has already received the anti-tetanus serum before. It is rapidly eliminated and it is less effective, or it may be ineffective also. Coming to tetanus immunoglobulins. This preparation contains specific gamma globulin which is prepared from human plasma having a high titer of tetanus antitoxins. That is, plasma contains more tetanus antitoxins. Previously, we have learned about diphtheria and tetanus antitoxins. Those are the serum preparations from the horse, whereas tetanus immunoglobulins are prepared from human plasma. Such plasma is obtained from blood of hyperimmunized subjects or from placentas from mothers who have already received a booster dose of tetanus few weeks before the delivery. The half-life of human immunoglobulins is between 3 to 4 weeks. Its prophylactic dose is 250 to 500 international units, which is to be given intramuscularly. Anti-D Rho immunoglobulin, that is, it is prepared from human. This is prepared from the pooled plasma of naturally immunized women with high titer of anti-D antibodies or from the serum of suitably immunized males. In an Rh negative woman with an Rh positive husband, if the fetus is Rh positive, then erythroblastosis fetalis may occur. To prevent this erythroblastosis fetalis, it is necessary to give a dose of Rho-D immunoglobulins 500 units within 72 hours of the delivery. What is erythroblastosis fetalis? You have to learn. Antenatal dose at 28 weeks of pregnancy is now recommended. Rho-D immunoglobulins is contraindicated in Rh positive women and in Rh negative women who develop Rh antibodies because of previous conception or transfusion of Rh positive blood. That is, if a patient is Rh negative, that is O negative, and maybe she has received Rh positive blood, that is O positive blood in some condition, then this immunoglobulins should not be given. They are strictly contraindicated. The preparation is to be given to the postpartum mother, not to the baby. It should be given to the mother after delivery within 72 hours. It should not be given to the baby. It is also used after abortion. Coming to hepatitis B globulin. This is immune globulin prepared from pooled plasma of donors with high titers of antibody to the surface antigen but not containing the surface antigen HBsAg. It is indicated for post-exposure prophylaxis in susceptible individuals. The antibodies, they persist in the body for 3 months. The adverse reactions consist of local pain, tenderness, angioedema, etc. Rabies antiserum. We have learned about rabies vaccine, but this is rabies antiserum. Rabies antiserum, this is a hyperimmune horse serum. This is also prepared from the horse, containing the globulins that have the specific power which neutralize the rabies vaccine. This is usually given along with rabies vaccine in patients who have received severe bites. That is, you have to understand that rabies antiserum should be given along with the rabies vaccine. 400 units are infiltrated around the wound, and at the same time a dose of 40 units per kg is given intramuscularly. That is, 400 units should be applied on the wound and 40 units should be given intramuscularly along with rabies vaccine. Due to possible severe allergic reactions, the rabies horse antiserum rabies immunoglobulin is now preferred. Okay. Now we'll learn about the next topic in our class today, that is antidotes. What are antidotes? Antidotes are any agent or substances that neutralize a poison or they counteract or minimize its harmful effects without causing damage to the body. The poison may be a drug, toxic agents, heavy metals, pesticides, etc. These antidotes, they neutralize these poison and they counteract and they decrease the harmful effects. Based on mode of action, antidotes are of three types: physical antidotes, chemical antidotes, pharmacological or physiological antidotes. The mechanism of action of antidotes is complex formation, metabolic conversion, prevention of toxic metabolite formation. By changing the physiochemical nature of the toxin, antidote returns to the normal function by repairing a defect. This universal antidote. This antidote is called universal antidote because it can be used in all cases of poisoning, even when the nature of the poison, that is which poison, is unknown. In that cases also you can use this universal antidote. Universal antidote, it is given 15 to 30 grams orally. It can be repeated every 12 hours or 24 hours. The composition of universal antidote is 2 parts of charcoal, 1 part of magnesium oxide and 1 part of tannic acid or tannins. Charcoal is obtained from burnt bread or a toast that results in adsorption, adsorption of poison. That is sticking, attaching, adsorption of poison. Magnesium oxide is obtained from milk of magnesia, which results in the neutralization of the poison. Tannic acid, it is obtained from strong tea, which results in precipitate metal alkaloid glucosides and neutralization of alkali. This universal antidote, it is given orally into the stomach. So it can be given in any poisoning which is unknown also. So the charcoal, it absorbs the poison from the stomach. Magnesium oxide, it neutralizes the poison. Tannic acid, it forms a precipitate of the metals, alkaloids and glucosides. But this composition is now found to be ineffective. So now we are calling activated charcoal as the universal antidote. These are the examples of some antidotes along with their indications. Activated charcoal, it is used for many oral toxins. Theophylline or caffeine, it is indicated in adenosine receptor agonist poisoning. Antimuscarinic drugs like atropine, they are noted as antidotes in organophosphorus poisoning and carbamate insecticides poisoning, and in some mushroom poisonings also. Beta blockers, they are given in theophylline poisoning. Calcium chloride and calcium gluconate, they are given, they are indicated in calcium channel blocker toxicity. Chelators such as EDTA, dimercaprol, penicillamine, and 2,3-dimer captosuccinic acid (DMSA), all these chelators are used in heavy metal poisonings. Cyanide antidotes such as hydroxycobalamin, amyl nitrite, sodium nitrite, and thiosulfate, they are given as antidote in cyanide poisoning. Cyproheptadine, it is a serotonin syndrome. It is given in serotonin syndrome. Deferoxamine is an antidote in iron poisoning. Similarly, 100% ethanol and fomepizole, it is given in ethylene glycol poisoning and methanol poisoning. Flumazenil, this is an antidote for benzodiazepine overdose or benzodiazepine poisoning. flumazenil. Then insulin plus glucagon is given in beta blocker poisoning and calcium channel blocker poisoning. Insulin plus glucagon. Next, methylene blue. It is used in the treatment of conditions such as methemoglobinemia. Naloxone hydrochloride. This is an antidote for opioid overdose. Naloxone is an antidote for morphine poisoning. Then N-acetylcysteine. It is an antidote for paracetamol, acetaminophen poisoning. Octreotide. It is antidote for oral hypoglycemic agents. Then we come to protamine sulfate. This is given in heparin poisoning or vitamin K, that is phytomenadione, and fresh frozen plasma. It is given in warfarin overdose and some rodenticides. Protamine sulfate in heparin poisoning, phytomenadione, that is vitamin K, it is given in warfarin overdosage. Physostigmine sulfate, it is given in anticholinergic poisoning. Coming to sodium bicarbonate, it is given in aspirin, tricyclic acids with wide QRS. Coming to succimer, it is a chemical name of dimercaptosuccinic acid, DMSA. This is antidote for lead poisoning. The next topic we are going to learn is about anti-snake venom serum. The poisonous snakes belong to three families: Viperidae, Elapidae, Hydrophiidae. The viper venom commonly kills by its action on the cardiovascular system, though some venoms contain a neurotoxin as well. The elapid venom contains mainly a neurotoxin which causes the muscle paralysis. So we use a polyvalent anti-snake venom serum, that is antivenin, in a person who is bitten by a snake. Polyvalent anti-snake venom serum, it is obtained from immunized horses which has the purified antitoxin globulins that have the power of neutralizing the venom of cobra, kate, Russell's viper and saw-scaled viper. It is reconstituted by adding 10 ml of distilled water. A sensitivity test is performed by injecting 0.02 to 0.1 ml of 1:10 diluted antivenom subcutaneously. If no reaction occurs within 30 minutes, then 20 to 40 ml is injected IV very slowly for about 0.5 to 1 ml per minute as the first dose, and repeated thereafter if necessary for every 3 to 4 hours up to a total of 100 ml depending on the severity of the case. In case of viper bite, some serum is injected around the site of the bite to prevent the development of gangrene. The serum can also be given intramuscular or subcutaneous, though the IV route is most preferable. Allergic reactions and anaphylaxis is treated by the conventional methods. In a serious case, one may not wait for the sensitivity test but give the serum immediately. In such circumstances, it is advisable to use prophylactic adrenaline, an antihistaminic and a glucocorticoid simultaneously. That's all. Today, that is the end of our topics. In general, the nursing care, we'll learn about the nursing care in general. That is, to start the treatment as soon as possible after the exposure to a dog bite or exposure to any other viruses. The vaccination should be given, or the treatment in poisoning cases, immediately it should be started. Then to administer vaccines as per the immunization schedule, you have to thoroughly go through the immunization schedule and you have to check whether they are given as per the schedule or not. Then to evaluate the adverse drug reactions. These reactions may be vaccine related, or in poisoning cases, the adverse drug reactions can be seen with drug reactions. So immediately you have to inform the doctors if any of the cases are doubtful. For that, you have to go through the adverse drug reactions of each vaccine, and you have to go through the antidotes also. Then you have to monitor BP, pulse, saturation and other vitals in case of poisoning cases. If the patient is unstable, whether the patient is unstable or stable, you have to check and inform the doctor. Next, to assess the intake and output ratio, that is urine intake, urine output ratio, intake of fluids. If you put him under any fluids like normal saline, ringer lactate, or dextrose, so you have to calculate the intake and the output, that is urine output ratio in case of poisonings. If the urine output is less than 300 ml, you have to inform the doctor. Any situation where you feel doubtful if whether the patient, if patient is becoming uh, unstable or he is showing any signs which are doubtful, you have to immediately inform it to the doctor. So these are the topics today we have learned. If you have any doubts, you can comment in below, or you can even ask them in the group. Don't hesitate to ask your doubts. Thank you.